All right, recording has started. We're just going to roll on this one. Welcome into another episode of Everything is Logistics, a podcast for the thinkers in freight. We are proudly presented by SPI Logistics. I'm your host, Blythe Brumleve, and we got Grace Sharkey back with another episode of Freight Friends. We record these once a month. I go on her show on Sirius, and then she comes on here. We try to make these shows last. We try to be timely with them, but they have been pushing the 2-hour mark for a little while. The past couple of episodes, we are going to try to make it to an hour and a half because we both got calls as soon as this show is over. So let me go ahead and talk about the roadmap for today's show. Hopefully, yeah, Mike's all good. We're good to go. All right. So roadmap for today, we're going to talk a little bit about FreightX and the We Are So Back movement. We're going to talk a little bit about Dave Portnoy, CEO of Barstool, founder, returns as the owner of Barstool, full owner. Then we're going to tie that into a little bit of Andrew Silver. He is the former CEO of Molo, and I think there's some interesting comparisons with those two stories. And then next, we're going to talk about our favorite hustles in freight, one legitimate and one criminal organization. So that cargo crime, I love watching and, digesting different cargo crime stories. I find it fascinating. So I think that'll be super fun to dive into. Then we're going to talk a little bit about Grace's retail shipping story on the death of ultra fast shipping. Is it 15 minutes? Is it a day? Is it 2-day shipping? What do we have to look forward to, I guess, or to remove from our feature requests in that regard? And then we're going to end, of course, with our favorite logistics of story to round out the show. So it's very a heavy social media show that we got for today, freight media themed. So let's just go ahead and dive in. First topic, FreightX is so back.
We are
What
we are
the
so
hell?
back. We did it. We're back. We're back. Maybe not fully the freight market, but the freight Twitter's back. Yeah, well, it's not Twitter anymore, right? So it's FreightX is like we like to call it now. It's we've been having a lot of fun. There's a big group of us on Discord. We've been bringing the troops in, getting everyone back on X, I guess we're calling it, right? I love it. First off, I will say and I probably have said this in the past episodes of this show, Twitter has never been my favorite. Just because I always felt it could be honestly a tad cruel. There's a lot of haters a little bit on Twitter. I think people use it a lot to just kind of spew hate a little bit more
Sure.
compared to others. So I'd say that's kind of why I've stayed away from it. But I will say I'm on the wave now. I've been having a lot of fun. We're really using it better at Sirius as well. That was a big part of it. Is one of our producers over at Sirius was telling us that the content that we were doing they were retweeting and stuff like that was actually getting really good feedback. Like the Road Dog Trucking's Twitter was growing pretty quickly, and so it's like, okay, maybe there's a trick to this, right? And it's much like other platforms, right? You just gotta make content, post, interact as much as possible. And I've started to meet a lot of great people on there. So yeah, we are part of like this huge Please Advise group, right? And we're bringing Twitter back, and we're asking the tough questions, and we're pushing each other to maybe look deeper into the aspects of freight, whether it's technology or just businesses, and everyone's getting involved. And I love seeing, right, like our CEO founder Craig Fuller on there, like really engaging the people and getting everyone amped. And it's yeah, it's back, baby. We're back and we're rolling, and hopefully everyone out there can join the fun a little bit more too.
And explain
Yeah.
because full disclosure, we were supposed to record last Thursday, but I left, went to Disney instead, and
Yeah.
rescheduled for today. And I check in on Twitter, and I'm seeing every freight related social media account that I follow on Twitter is tweeting, "We are so back." I'm like, what the hell is going on? I literally was gone. I didn't check Twitter for like 48 hours, and all of a sudden there's like a movement going on. So explain to us a little bit. Is this story from Ben accurate, or what's the, I guess, the behind the scenes? Where did this sort of movement meme come from?
So it is really funny because this kind of shows you just the power of a group, right? To really think about it, probably actually, yeah, when you were at Disney World last Thursday. So every Thursday, we have a huge Discord called Please Advise, where a large group of freight people, and it's honestly less leadership and more of like entry level employees,
Hmm.
people building technology, individual business owners, etc., all come together and we just talk about different topics. And so every Thursday we have our freight therapy group where we just kind of vent about things, and everything that Ben said in there is right. Like we're kind of venting about like where the industry is going, what we're working on, how not only like maybe there's not that volume that's back, but just different things that everyone is working on is like really impressive. And it's kind of like when you go to a conference, right? And you're in these discussions and you leave like you feel powerful. You feel like, okay, it's not the negative rhetoric about the industry that's winning, right? It's not the brokers versus carriers. Like that's all clickbait to me. Like
Hmm.
there's a big group of us that are from every bit of the industry that want to do better, that want autonomous vehicles, that are considering. I mean, even Reed asked that in one of our group sessions last week. Like, when someone owns a truck stop, he's like, "What are you doing to diversify to be ready for electric vehicles?" And he had an incredible great answer for that. And it's sometimes you just you hear these narratives that some of this stuff is like not good or not,
Hmm.
and it's a group of people who not only are venting during freight therapy but speaking their truths and even maybe questioning some tech or accepting others. And so a lot of times when we do these groups, we kind of like to leave it with like a mission or like a goal or like something that we'll do, whether it's like we all in this situation tweet something, or we maybe start a different initiative or look into something. We have Billy who's under the Freight Bandit handle, who likes to write kind of like onion articles. So like sometimes we're like, Billy, this is what you got to write about this week and stuff like that. So
I love
uh
that his name is Billy.
yeah, no, it's
I followed this account. I didn't know. I almost reached out to them thinking that they would want to to do an interview. And I was like, well, they're an anonymous account, so probably not.
yeah,
But to know that like
you
there's somebody
should.
behind it and Billy, like that is just such a perfect freight account.
Like
Everything matches up great.
throughout the sessions, we're like, Billy, write this down. So uh it's I think he just wrote one that was like carriers arguing against the other carriers that are arguing against each other. It's like he just really writes really good kind of satire stuff. And so at the end of it, there's this kind of like bro saying that's starting to come out that's like we're back, and so we're like, okay, let's all just like, we're trying to get it trending at the time. We're like, let's all everyone just go to your accounts. Like Reed is literally like, everyone go to your accounts and tweet, "We are so back," and then everyone go retweet everyone else's "We are so back." And so the next morning it just like caught on. And I mean, even like Adam Newman's chief of staff account like jumps in and like is part of it too. So like he's got like 22,000 followers or something. Like, so there's like a lot of really interesting accounts. I will say just last night Craig joined the Discord, so I think he's going to show up to our we have Tech Bro Tuesdays where we kind of talk about technology. And there's
Yeah,
actually
because
a
there's
couple. Yeah,
I
go
was going to
for
say
it.
there's regular show, because for folks who don't know what Discord is, it's kind of like a Reddit, it's kind of like a forum, where you can join specific groups, you can join specific communities, and then or a Slack channel is probably
Yes.
maybe a better way to describe it.
Yes.
It's a dedicated Slack channel for all of your friends to join,
Yep.
and so you guys also have regular content. So it's not just something that you can engage with throughout the day. There are several discussions. Are they video based discussions? Are they audio based discussions? What does that look like happening live on a Tech Bro Tuesday or what is it, the Thursday show as well, where you also like share your grievances or you share your
Yeah.
frustrations or something?
So the Tuesday show we do inside Discord, and it's audio, but like some of the individuals will showcase some of the tech they're just personally building for the work that they do at whether it's a brokerage or a carrier, etc.
Oh, that's cool.
It was actually it's really cool because like even last like this past week there's a company I never heard of that someone had
Mhm.
introduced me to, and I got to talk to them this week, and it was funny because I told them like how I found out about them. And it's a lot of times in the spot that I am in, I hear about a lot of the high level technology, big investors, but it's like in this space, there's a lot of even tech entrepreneurs themselves who are working on things.
That's
GateGo is
cool.
a company I like just met through them. And so they'll go through and they'll like kind of showcase things that they're building. And uh I don't want to kind of give up any of these people's identities, but there's people who work at large brokerages who will showcase, just things that maybe they're not working on for the actual brokerage, but just in themselves are interested in coding and are just younger individuals, like even Gen Zs that are like, yeah, I mean, who doesn't know how to code these days? So like, let me show you how I've built a routing software, which, is just so funny to me because I mean, I will say there's a company I recently wrote about that's uh coming out of stealth mode, which it probably won't give it away because there's a lot of them, that one of our Discord members is like they've already built it. So it's like it's just like really cool to like see what people are working on and like what technologies out there that people just don't even realize is being utilized. That you get one really, I mean, this one person I'm thinking of in particular, just he quit college because he already knew how to code and he wanted to build something that mattered. So he joined a company and helped them improve their processes. And now it's like something a company got tens of millions of dollars for last week that's not even developed yet. So it's like, it's really cool for me, in my view, to like kind of listen to these people and hear from them, like what's working. And we have deep discussions, especially in the tech one,
Hmm.
about adoption and why things are so segmented and why it's so difficult to get maybe companies integrated with each other and on the same page, or even just change management and then things of that nature. Like, why is that so hard? And so that's another fun one. And then on and Reed's funny too because he does hold us like Tuesdays is tech only, Thursdays is therapy. So it's like if someone starts complaining about brokers, he's like, no, 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 not today. Um, and so on Thursdays is more freight therapy. So that's where people are just like, why is this happening? And we kind of talk through problems and make each other laugh and have a good time. And sometimes it's serious and sometimes it gets amped. I mean, there's a ton of truck drivers in this thing. So trust me, sometimes it goes off the rails a little bit, but you have to laugh because that's just how people are. But it's funny because everyone is doing the "we are so back" thing, and literally it's because I all of us were like, yeah, screw it, let's all go retweet each other and like get this rolling. So it shows you just like, I don't know, the power of community, right? And like, and all
Yes.
all voices matter. I think that's the big thing, is like,
Mhm.
went to school for politics. That kind of was like my goal when I first like was like, what am I gonna do with my life? And it feels that way. It feels like when you put together like a rally or like a movement or like a picketing for something, right? Like, and you leave there and you're like, yeah, like maybe we didn't fix something 100% that's structural today, but we've got the energy out there and people are joining, and that's really what it's become. And I definitely don't want to take any um uh, I guess not responsibility, but it's 100% Reed, right? It's something that he's put together and is passionate about. I know right now he's really trying to figure out where do we drive this thing. And me and Justin are kind of helping him with that too. And it's just, at the end of the day, it's fun.
Yeah.
And a lot of us work from home. We don't get that. So that community. So I'm having a great
And
old
I think
time for sure.
it sounds like it's fun, but it's also channeling those, like you said, those discussion points. Like I
Yes.
joined the Discord, but I still have issues with like trying to navigate. Like I'm part
Oh,
of like 7 or 8 different Discords, and it's taken me a little while to kind of grasp the, I guess, using that platform. And I
yeah.
think it's maybe a little bit more challenging for like the older folks in freight. I would probably put myself maybe in that bucket as
Same.
well.
Yeah.
But for folks who, I'm very experienced Reddit user, but Reddit has been around for more than 10 years. So
Hmm.
I'm used to navigating and finding all of those different communities. In Discord, it's been a little bit more of a challenge. So I'm technically part of that group, but I just logged in while you were talking, and I was like, crap, I need to re-download the app, because it's one of those, like, if you don't access it in, a few weeks, then Apple puts it on, they, just remove it from your phone or whatever. You have to download it again from the cloud. So I just downloaded it again from the cloud. So you have convinced me to become more active in there, because you're right. From a community perspective, he is doing such an incredible job, not just on Twitter, but it also, like, I've seen him starting to post more. Reed is starting to post more on LinkedIn. Like,
Yes.
he nails it as far as his social media is concerned. And we're going to get into a little bit of his other projects that he has going on a little bit later in the show, as far as like those businesses that we think, like those different hustles and freight, a legal one that is
Yeah.
actually really interesting. And I think that that's sort of just, the tip of the iceberg for him.
Yeah. Yeah. Go follow him and support him for sure. And buy a hat. Actually, where's mine? It's right here on the other side of my microphone.
Where do I
And he
have
just came out with dad hats, which I got on him for, because as a female, I feel like dad hats are cuter than trucker hats. I love a good trucker
Yes.
hat, but so he listens to the people, right? So
I
go
wish I
grab
could
one of
find.
those.
I was one of the. I think me and you were one of like the first 30 people to order a hat from
Yes.
him, and I wish I had. I know it's somewhere around here. I don't
And
know,
it's
but
like
it will
he's
be. I'll tell you where it will be. Is at F3.
yes, because everyone will have them. We're like planning on like a group event about it, and I'll give you kind of a sneak peek of like how clever this he is. Like, even down to when you guys go to his website to buy a hat. Like right now, the dad hats are like 99% off. The original price was for 42,000 $69. Like the kind of that's like the comedy behind Reed, where it's like down to the like very little points of like how silly can we make this.
I was
Uh
gonna try to pull up the B-roll for it, but yeah, he is, he's
it's
definitely
funny.
one of those, like, I need to get him on the show to just try to, like, pick his brain about, and
Oh
just for the
yeah.
glory of, like, the rest of freight marketing, because he did ask something recently about, like, which brokerage has the best marketing in, and it took me, like, I feel like I should probably know the answer to it, but I had to think really hard, and I keep
Yeah.
coming back to, like, the same answers, and it's like Freightvana. Like, Freightvana
Yeah.
does Freightvana, Rocket Shipping. I think they're probably the best 3PLs as a team when it comes
Hmm.
to marketing as far as a freight brokerage is concerned. I don't know of very many other companies that are doing a better job. Freight Plus is one that creates great content that posts to social media or LinkedIn in particular, but that's kind of it as far as like really good marketing.
Yeah.
Which is kind of
Mhm.
sad. So maybe a conversation with him will really help sort of unlock the creativity. And I think also not just from a creativity perspective, but feeling okay to be a little weird. Like being
Exactly.
a little weird, like, stands out. And I think that that's just a more of a testament from the stuffiness of the perceived audience of freight, and kind of shaking that up a little bit and saying like, no, this is a really cool industry. There are lots of really cool stories to tell. And that's sort of the goal, I think, with his initiative, and then with a lot of, or not a lot, but a few of the content creators out there.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
Japan, like their commercials are all kind of like that. They're like so wild that you're like, what's even this product? And then it gets to and you're like, what? But it's like memorable where you're like, oh, okay. Like remember Flock Freight? What was it?
Yep.
What was that? So they got Steve from Blue's Clues.
Yeah.
What to say what the flock? You know, like That's funny. And honestly, as a
Yeah,
if a customer said to me, "You've lost my business because of that," then kick rocks. Like
right.
that's fine. Karen, we don't need that energy here. So sorry to all the Karens out there. Imagine. Yeah.
I know. Imagine having that name and then all of a sudden, my cousin's name is Becky, and so for a little while she was kind of wrapped up in that.
Yeah. Yikes. Yeah.
But maybe maybe in a slightly better way than what
Yeah.
Karens have to deal with. All
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
let's we're gonna come back to Reed in a little bit. So let's move on to our next topic, and that's getting a second chance at your dream job. I'm gonna kind of set this one up a little
Mm,
bit. This is Dave Portnoy buying back his media company. And so he is the CEO of Barstool, founder of Barstool Sports, and he got started. He has one of the more interesting, I know a lot of people just, they don't like him because he's kind of a jerk, and he kind of is, but I think you kind of got to be a little bit of a jerk in order to be a good CEO,
yeah.
especially of a media company. It's very, very challenging to be in charge of a media company. But he got his start by writing out stories, printing them himself in a little newspaper format, and then he would go on the streets of Boston and hand them out himself. He eventually got advertisers, obviously started up a Barstool Sports website. He made his first expansion into Chicago. That's where Dan Katz comes from with, God, what is their show? Oh my God. PFT, not PFT.
Yep.
But PFT is the
Part of my
co-host.
take.
Yes, part
Part
of
of
my
my
take. Monday,
Mhm.
Wednesday, Friday, probably the best sports show or by far the best sports podcast. And it basically started up that media empire within Barstool. So, uh, sports blogging in general blows up. And then he built it up to a huge company, cities all over the country that have dedicated reporters that are covering college sports, pro sports. I mean, really like a huge sports ecosystem. And then he builds it up enough to where he's going to sell it. I think Peter, the Churning Group, then also sold to a portion of the company to Penn Gaming, which is a betting platform. And so since then, the brands weren't really aligned. So Dave still had a good
Yeah.
portion of his shares, but did not hold majority stock. Penn is a betting company. They're trying to make sports betting legal in states all over the country. They've only been able to make it legal in a very small amount of states. With the nature of the Barstool kind of content, they're kind of raunchy. They're not afraid to be weird. They're not afraid to, be a little edgy, a lot edgy in some instances. And that doesn't really mesh well with a brand who is trying to keep regulators happy, who
Yeah.
has a stock price.
Yeah.
So the Barstool content, it affected the Penn stock price. It affected, states granting licenses, betting licenses to this company. Licenses threatened to be pulled just because of Dave Portnoy and his Barstool like content style.
Yeah.
So it
Big
was probably one of those. Oh, what was you
I
gonna say?
was gonna say Big Cat, for years he's done like and he would do it on shows too. Like my favorite show is besides the Yak is the Barstool Advisors, right? Where it's more of like uh, of course, betting, but also helps a little bit with fantasy and stuff like that. Uh, Big Cat has this bet that he calls "cannot lose parlay." It's satirical because it's usually so crazy it will probably lose.
Mhm.
So the win is if you win, you usually win big time. But they got fined over $10,000, I think, in Illinois for it because the way that it markets cannot lose. People were getting it, thinking it cannot lose when they don't realize satirically it's supposed to lose. So yeah, tell that right there. It's not clicking very well, that's for sure.
So the brand alignment was not there.
No.
Um, so what happens is the stock price has been falling, and they eventually try to negotiate a deal with Disney. Disney owns ESPN. And so they work out a deal in that regard, but Disney says no to Barstool. We do not want any kind of affiliation with them. If you keep your relationship with Barstool, then this deal will not happen. Penn needs ESPN because they're a little bit more brand safe. They still have probably, I think, twice the amount of audience as Barstool does in a I don't know how they actually determine it, but that's just the tweet that I saw, is that, or the post that I saw. I don't know how to refer to tweets now, but
Yeah,
that's the
right.
tweet that I saw is that ESPN has doubled the audience, the cumulative audience that Barstool has. So it's a win for Penn, but also Dave knew that he had an opportunity. As I think one tweet says that he had Penn bent over a barrel pretty much because of the fact that he knew that Disney was not going to do. Penn needed to do the deal, and Disney was not going to do it if Barstool was involved. Dave originally sold his company for $500 million and was able to buy it back for $1, which is, I think, absolutely incredible that you're able to make all of that money and then you're able to come back and buy your company back. Sole ownership, says he's never going to sell it again. It's content is what they're going to be focused on. So now he's full owner back at Barstool, and there's been a really fun, like I guess tweets that have come out of it, and videos that have come out of it. But initial thoughts from you when as this news is going down.
Well, I will say that at the very peak of the next day of We Are So Back, this happened. So, in a personal level, I was on, can I say the F word, a fucking high. I was like already busy with We Are So Back, that I was like, oh my god, like Blythe knows I love Dave Portnoy. People can judge me all they want. I've never disagreed with him. He is an asshole sometimes, but he stays asshole. Like
Mm-hmm.
you know what to expect from someone. He's not like one of, sometimes you get those leaders who are assholes when it's good for them. He will be an asshole across the board.
And won't
And
apologize for it either, which
no,
is what I like.
I love that consistency. So as a stoolie for some time now, I was amped about it. I was like, yes, let's go. Like we need some more Dave Portnoy, right? Like that day one, no one was in the office, that energy. Like, yes, let's go for this dude. And it is interesting because I do have my concerns. I personally I had my concerns with betting and sports and the way that they were doing it. I guess is kind of opposite of everything. And so I was kind of glad to see that they got away from that, and they have had to really watch their content because of it. Not that it was like getting so bad where I was like, I'll never take in Barstool content again. But I know there was times where it's like, okay, I think they're censoring themselves a little bit just because
Hmm.
of the betting side of things. So I loved it, and I think it's listen, whenever someone I looked at it honestly as an employee in that situation. Like I think I love working for FreightWaves because of how Craig is, and how he's definitely, I wouldn't say as anywhere near as rude or as aggressive as Portnoy is, but he's all about that pirate mentality. Like he's like, let's take this thing over, screw what everyone else has to say. Like, and I'm into that. Like, I know. I hope there's someone from LinkedIn watching this now. I know there's a bunch of haters out there on LinkedIn, and I love it. There's nothing I love more than when you share our content and hate on it at the same time, because that's just clicks, baby. And I think it's hilarious that you think that doesn't fuel me and Dooner more than ever. Like Dooner and I are on the same page when it comes to this stuff. Like I when we talk about disruption, and everyone in this industry is like, yeah, it's ready for some disruption. Like, no, we're bringing the disruption, and we'll tell you when it's good, and we'll tell you when it's bad, and you can tell us that we're wrong. But guess what? We're usually right. So uh,
I'm just gonna
I
I'm
hope
gonna let you
someone
cook.
I hope someone hates me for this. No, I truly I love it, and that's part of the reason I worked here. I will say I had there's someone I worked with in the past role that I was in who did not like Freight Waves, didn't thought that we attacked people who didn't deserve to be attacked. And I think that's bullshit. I think that if you're running a company and that your company has problems and it gets to the news, and trust me, we do our due diligence. And that's the best thing about working here is I get to see the work that we do on some of these stories. I've been a part of the work that we do. We do our due diligence. And so for people out there that want to push against us, we are here. We're not going anywhere. And I think what we're doing for the industry, especially right with we are so back and like getting people motivated, is just like the same exact feeling that I feel like the employees at Barstool probably had in that moment when Dave brought. I mean, there's nothing better than seeing a leader who says, we're taking this ship back over and we're getting this stuff done. So I was so pumped when I saw it, and I think that I'm happy for them. I'm excited to see where Barstool goes. I'm really excited to see what the Chicago office is all about, and the work they're doing there. Clearly, just being a skip away from that. But pumped for it, and same vibes over here as well.
That's as you were talking, I had an image just up on the screen. And so this is the day after Dave announces that he has bought back 100% of Barstool, and he's in the office. So if you're looking at it, it's an image on the left. It's at 9:45 in the morning. Dave posted a video. He said, "My employees are so brain dead that they didn't show up to the office on time within a reasonable time frame on the first day back." And he was very upset. And then later on in that day at 5:21, you can see the same part of the office and every desk is filled. And
Yeah.
he said, everybody is afraid to leave now. And this is at 5:21 p.m., which I really dig. I really like, to sort of echo your statement as far as like, he's a wartime CEO. And I don't
Yeah.
know that I could I would call Craig a wartime CEO, but I would say that Dave is definitely a way more like of an unapologetic asshole than Craig is. Like Craig just
Yeah.
speaks facts. I
Yeah.
think Dave like wants to shove the facts in your face. Like
Yeah.
that. I think that that's kind of the difference between the two of them. And some of the things that Dave was saying in his video is he said, "We don't want to watch what we say or what we do. The pirate ship is back. I'm never selling this company again. When I die, I'll leave it to Dan, or I'll leave it to," I think he said some other employee name. And he pounded the desk. He literally said, "It's content, content, content." And I
Yeah.
thought that it'll be so interesting. And I'm curious to hear what your take is what do you think they do from a content perspective? Because the way that Barstool was built is that an athlete has some kind of a, because I worked in sports blogging for a little while. We were trying to follow the same Barstool model, and it was very, very challenging. It's a college football Saturday, and you are writing anywhere from 30 to 40 articles in a day, which is so draining. But essentially, what you're writing is you see something trend on Reddit, you see something trend on Twitter, you write up a blog post really quickly, like no more than 300 words, include the tweet, include the Reddit post, hit send, goes out to all the social media channels. We submit it to all these other different partner websites in order to get it trending as quick as possible. That was back in the day. Now, I don't know that that model works in sports because we have, as an audience, we have such a direct relationship. And I think the algorithms in each social media platform have gotten so much better that they'll automatically recommend those posts to you. So I'd be
Yeah.
curious to understand or maybe think about what are the content plans for Barstool next? If it's content, 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 what does that look like? And I think from my lens, it's probably double down on video and podcasting. I'm not so sure about the blog route though. I did see one tweet from Dave that said, Smitty or somebody. I'm not that in all. I
Yeah.
watch a couple of their shows. I don't watch everything. But he said something to the effect of Smitty wrote 7 blogs all month. Like
Yeah.
it kind of got the impression that it should be double or even triple that.
Yeah.
So I'm curious what you think as far as like content plan. What do you think Barstool does next?
I think that it sounds like from the Chicago office that so Dan and a large majority of the group just moved into a huge office in Chicago. And it sounds like their plan there is phones up, content made, right? Even David said in an interview that if there's an argument or two employees aren't agreeing on something, there's no HR department here, which I love, right? Yeah, Penn's like, thank God that's gone. Uh, we pick up the cameras and you solve it, right? That's content. I think it'll be kind of that TMZ kind of look, and I love that stuff. I think it's so cool, and I think it's a new form of like reality TV, right?
Hmm.
It's in the now. And I will say, in regards to the sports aspect, they're bringing on a hell of a lot of athletes, I think,
Hmm.
onto their platform too. I think that's going to be part of it, right? Who's the guy that just moved to the Sixers, who has a podcast with Roan? That's huge. There's even though Dave hates him, like LeBron's been posting about different shows and stuff like that. So I think they'll win the athletes over, which will bring some of that sports content back. I agree with you. I think the blogs, uh what I've seen is that they a lot of times use the blogs as like a follow-up to maybe uh, a, a fight or a situation that happened on camera, right? I'm trying to
Kind of give the whole backstory, I guess, on
yeah,
not just showing the tweet and kind of explaining it, but giving a bigger backstory of where
yeah.
this comes, the nuance to it, I guess.
Exactly. Like a couple weeks ago, there was KFC's show. He was talking about how much he hated the Barbie movie, which pretty much every girl that worked at Barstool wanted to murder him. So they did a little segment on the KFC show, maybe 15, 20 minutes long, but each of the girls wrote a blog about it, right? So like gave that content. So it's almost like connecting them all to each other in a different way. So
Hmm.
I think that's where it'll still be that nuance. And it's funny, they picked up Francis. They brought Francis back, right? Who, if people don't, if you're not a Barstool person, you definitely won't know this, but Francis got fired a long, long time ago because there was a girl who went missing, and he had joked about her. And Francis has very dark humor. And he wrote a blog about how she's probably dead. And like 10 minutes after he posted it, it came out she was dead. So like it was like they ended up having to fire him because it was just like wasn't, but he's back. And even Dave said in an interview yesterday, like Francis came up to me and he was like, a lot of my blogs have been getting denied. So like, is this back? And he's like, yeah, we're back. And so I think you're gonna see a lot of like interesting humor that we haven't seen on those blogs before too. But it sounds like a lot of it's gonna be kind of pick up your cell phones, grab a camera, and film the disputes in house. Which when he was like, I'm sure upset with no one being in the office, like we can't do that if you guys aren't physically here. So
I
I
love
love
that
it.
approach. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's a really interesting point because it's something as I sort of grapple with like, or I think a lot of writers they grapple with like AI and what does how
yeah,
does that affect your job and what content can you create that's value added that AI can't replicate. And I think that reality type situation, turning
yes,
your bloggers and your broadcasters into reality TV kind of talent, I think that could be a really interesting play. And I
mhm,
think that yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me because it's something that AI can't affect, whereas
yeah.
AI will probably help them write articles faster, but it can't replace that sort of in-office drama or in-office debates or friendly debates that happen really organically. And I think that the audience would really resonate with that because it feels like you're getting a peek behind the curtain.
Well, and to bring this back to the whole discussion of like we're talking about people who have the best marketing, right, in our industry. You brought up Freightvana. They do that kind of stuff all the time. I mean, even
Mm,
down to, I mean, Ricky at one point was even posting about her own relationship problems that she was having,
mm,
and how she was, not stepping up, but uh think going through a separation, like with her, and
mm.
it's like even that type of stuff. Like you don't see anyone doing that, but it's like for a couple weeks there, and it still are. But I'm checking in on Ricky and like checking out her content, making sure she's doing good, and like that's the kind of stuff that it's like
That's
it's
interesting. It
so
gets you
it's real.
invested.
Yeah, exactly. And then if I was ever, I wouldn't, well, hopefully not have to, I guess. If I was to work there, it's like I'm already invested in your employees, like, and so
Good point.
I think that can even trickle over into our industry and how companies are. Dude Wipes is like a really great company, does the same type of stuff in their content that they make. There's a lot of companies that are kind of saying like, let's just talk about what we're doing, like what's life like inside the office, and that's the content we make.
It's definitely much better than like, here are the commodities I ship. Like, it's,
Yeah.
oh,
Oh
there's
yeah.
only are here are the rates that I got.
Yeah.
And some of this stuff is the same across the board. So thinking about those moments of what helps you stand out and what helps people. I mean, I could make an argument that sometimes I would imagine that a lot of people, frankly, don't care about what's going on in your personal life. They only want to care about how you can help them.
Yeah.
But I think that there's a balance with there's something called the KLT method, which is sharing, eight. If you think about your over the course of a month, you're going to make a post. Let's just say, for example, you're going to make a post every single day on LinkedIn. 80% of those posts should be about knowledge, about how you
Mm.
share your industry knowledge. Then 20%, or no, let me do, then something like, yeah, I messed my math up. So 70% of those posts should be about what you know. 20% of the post should be about what you like. And then 10% of the post should be something that allows the audience to develop a trusting relationship with you. So KLT. And the trusting part is the vulnerability part. So maybe that's a good example of like, Ricky is sharing a bunch of recruiting information, but then that one trust post probably made you really resonate with her and feel empathy for her. And now you're
Yes.
probably going to see the other, 70, 80% of her posts that are about the knowledge and about, other things that she likes, not necessarily about sort of I guess the gloom of a relationship ending, which is of course sad, but it kind of is a good, I guess, collection of posts that make you more than just a robot that is just publishing about, the services that your business provides. So it adds a little bit of a personal appeal.
Yeah, and it's I've been on at least the broker side of a phone call, right, with shippers. Like my best shipper relationships were the ones that knew about the last time I hung out with my nieces,
Hmm.
or every Monday we're talking about the new Housewives of New York episode. Like it was rarely like, "Oh my god, like you're so good at what you do. That's why I love you." It's like, "No. Not at all." So, I think even more so relationships are going to become more important because of the tech side of things. Because it's like, yeah, okay, the transaction I can give to you and your AI machine learning tools, whatever, will get the work done. But like what's going to keep me as a customer, right? Because in that digital era, and this is I think part even the reason why Surge has ended up having so many problems. When you build these tools, like you're investing a lot of resources into a model that a shipper can still jump away from as
Hmm.
fast as they came to you. And so what else is there that's holding them, right? Like what's that relationship like? And I think people that work for Freightvana, and I've seen the pictures that they take with the drivers and people of their trailers, like they have Freightvana hats, like they're invested in the brand. They're not just invested in a really cool system that helps improve shipping through drop trailers, right? It's much more than that. I mean, and it's funny because I mean, I just posted an article where I talked to like one of their senior engineers, and like he is just as cool as like Lars or anyone else we met. Like it's engraved in that company. So yeah, I think it's I hope people, you can have their thoughts on Barstool, etc. But I just hope that people take maybe away from it what's help it grow to the point it is staying. And the same with Freight Waves. And I think that's why we focus so much on our personalities and people that are part of the crew and people like me and Mary and Thomas. Like we we also have fun, and it's like
Hmm.
how do I say this without sounding like a complete asshole? When we go to
Just
events,
say
people
it.
want to hang out with us, like they want to see us too. It's not just like, oh, we're here to like see all the tech people. It's like, I mean, especially even a lot of people in the Discord, like they want to meet us face to face and like get a drink with us. And that's great for my narcissistic ass, but like it's
Well,
also
it's
like
growing the
it's
Freight Friends
proof.
ecosystem.
Yes, exactly, right? Yeah. And it's but also that helps me because you guys would be surprised how often I go to our events and like the secrets I hear and the stories that end up revolving out of them. Like it's not.
The
I
group
think there's
chat is on fire.
yeah. Well, the group chat stays
Yeah,
as
it stays
private,
private.
but it's like even the last event we had, I was like, there's like an hour and a half where people are just like, pss, 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 like it's I'm like I'm trying to
Ooh, I love
wrap,
the drama.
but it's like y'all are adding to it. I don't know why you think. Sorry, we're just delivering the message, but no, it's fun, and I think I just love it. I'm just having so much fun with it, and so that's what I
It's
mean.
cool.
Like we're so back. Like that's just one sentence way of putting it.
Well, somebody probably who wishes they were back is Andrew
I
Silver,
love. Okay.
former CEO of Molo, which is a hell of a transition. Um,
Whoo, boy.
he and speaking of being vulnerable, speaking of being,
Yes.
I hate this word, but I have to use it here, being authentically yourself.
Yes.
He is that on LinkedIn. And Grace,
Yeah, he
give us a
is.
little bit of backstory before we get into Andrew Silver's LinkedIn post. Give us a little bit of backstory on his sort of rise to fame, because he's probably the best, I think, at sort of logistics LinkedIn marketing. I think he has the best engagement out of anyone. Dooner very close second. But Andrew Silver, former CEO of Molo, give us a sense of the backstory here.
Yeah. So for people who don't, if you hear the last name and you know about the history of freight, then you probably are like Silver. That sounds right. So his dad was a big part of really the technology side of where this industry is today. That's all I'm going to say about his lineage at this point, because I think Andrew has done an incredible job making his own path within that. Uh, I want to start this off too by I love Andrew Silver. I think that I've talked to him before. He's a wonderful guy. I think that he has ideas that could help change the industry. I think there's, it's that legacy comes through in a lot of what he's doing. So he started a company with Matt Volkridge, I think that's how you say his last name, who he met at Michigan, because he's a Michigan graduate. So go green, go white, MSU. But they started their own brokerage called Molo Solutions, and um, using technology helped build a massive offering that of course grew to, I'm trying to figure out exactly what they're at, if it's possible. Grew to, okay, so in 2021 they were projected to hit about $600 million in revenue.
Wow.
They were only around for a couple of years, so that shows you how insane their growth is. And if anyone's going to figure out how to do that, it's going to be Andrew and the connections that he has. Not surprised at all that that was obtainable for him. Now, what people might know them most for is that they were acquired back, wow, it seems much sooner than that, but in 2021, end of 2021, November, they were acquired by ArcBest for $235 million, and with a potential future earnout payment. So a possibility of earning even more, which brought ArcBest's brokerage up to about $1.2 billion. So a great. Honestly, I heard some incredible stories at the time when this happened. People were saying, because especially you guys might know ArcBest or ABF, LTL, this added a huge brokerage opportunity for them. I had people at competitors that were like, I'm just getting swept away with this Molo thing. ArcBest is coming in and just promising the world and taking a lot of it. So I know that it was very advantageous for ArcBest. And now we're at this point sitting here today where possibly will they earn that earnout? We'll see. I will say I'm kind of like lightly working
And
on
that's
his
the
story.
former, Andrew Silver will get that buyout because of what's going on in the market. Is that what you're saying?
if they earn so if the brokerage earns a certain amount or hits certain obtainable goals, they'll get that earnout. Um, we'll see if that happens. I will say I'm working on stuff for that. So stay
Doing your
tuned.
due diligence.
Yes, doing my due diligence, right? Because there's some weird things that have happened since they got bought out. For example, Andrew was at Food Shippers last year and without notice was fired by ArcBest to head Molo along with Matt.
Hmm.
So there's some drama going on there. That's for sure.
I'm sure it
Uh,
was definitely unexpected from reading in between the lines of his social media posts. Very unexpected.
yes, very unexpected. So that's kind of where my interest is right now. But yeah, that's kind of the story behind them. And I mean, and here's the thing I love about them is, and I talk to people about this all the time. I don't know who else is, what other digital freight brokerage is going to find an exit like that.
Hmm.
That's, I mean, that's how you want to go, right? You build a beautiful platform, you get a ton of revenue in a short amount of time, and he got rid of it. Who, imagine if you waited 2 more years? Yikes! Like that value would have just collapsed. So it's like he talk about moving and getting things done at the perfect time. That's this is, I think, that story for sure.
And this is why I wanted to tie in the Andrew Silver post with what we just talked about with Dave Portnoy, because Dave
Yes.
Portnoy was able. I think for a lot of leaders, you think about starting up your business and then possibly selling it later on down the road for money you could have never imagined, and that's the ultimate dream, right? Like as soon as you sell your company, then you're set for life, and you don't have to worry about a damn thing after that. But then the transition period, it puts almost handcuffs on you. I can especially speak to my old boss that I worked for. He was a former truck driver. He worked his way up at the brokerage office, and he ended up buying out everybody else, owned that brokerage office, sold it off to another company. And that company, they put him up in an office. He was filthy rich. But the problem is that they put him up in an office with a glorified title. He sat in the executive suite, and he wasn't able to go on the brokerage floor, sit down next to brokers and have the conversations with them. He had an
Yeah.
open door policy with any driver that worked at that company, that they could walk right into his office and have a meeting with the CEO. Like he was in the trenches with everybody else. And when he sold his company, that wasn't happening, and he hated it. He hated every moment of it because he was on a
Mm-hmm.
completely different floor of the office building compared to the rest of like those workers that he loved engaging with. So he said, fuck the non-compete. I'm going to go and I'm going to start up another brokerage. And that's when I started working for him. So watching him get almost like his wings back and build up another company felt like a wartime CEO. And I couldn't help but think that when I'm reading this post because getting back to Andrew Silver, when I'm reading this post that he just posted up on LinkedIn a little over a week ago, I'll link to it in the comments just in case you haven't seen it. But he basically goes into, him, I guess, complaining about sort of the inauthentic content of what you see online, and how he just finds that it's just a bunch of dribble, it's a bunch of BS, and he'd much rather see something from the heart, and he just lets it all out. And he said, and he basically, I'm just gonna read from a little bit here. He's going through all of the motions about the fluff that he sees online. And then in this post, he says, while my loss pales in comparison, I lost the business I poured my heart and soul into for 5 years of my life, a business that was once just an idea in my head. And then I had the most incredible experience building it with so many awesome people, ripped away from me at a moment's notice while I was still at a conference I had just spoken at just a day prior. I could not imagine getting that news while at a conference and having your baby that you worked so hard at to build up, and then it's taken from you. And well, first, it's probably happened a little slowly where the decision making was taken from him, or he had to share the decision making, which is probably, I would imagine, really tough for wartime CEOs like a Dave, like a Craig, like my former boss. And it sounds like tough for Andrew as well. And I really resonated with this post. And I think that this is the kind of content that people do resonate with. So I agree fully with his sentiment here. And I just kind of wonder, like, what is next for him? Because the next company he's going to build is probably going to be incredible, because it's I would imagine, I can only speak for myself, but vengeance and wanting to prove somebody really drives you. And I think that that
Yeah.
might be the case of what we're witnessing here, is that he's starting to channel that anger into something new. And he doesn't exactly say what he's going to do next, but I would place a lot of money, maybe a barstool bet, on that he's going to build up another brokerage, and he's probably going to do it very, very well, and probably maybe never sell it again.
Yeah, and I mean, even with the bag that he got, like I would be very excited to see if he starts his own VC and starts
Mhm.
to maybe help some of those individuals build the tools that he knows how that can be applied to the industry, right? Like great things about people like Andrew, who I mean, they're literally born into this industry, is you have this knowledge that a lot of people don't have, but you also have the ideas of how it can our industry can be digitized and how it can be approached appropriately for that to actually follow through and bring some actual efficiency into the industry. So, I mean, I would love to see him start his own thing again. But I would also love to see him maybe mentor those who are trying to make the difference. Like I think
Hmm.
he's a really great from the times that I've spoke with him or been in conversations with him. I think that he could really help people bring that technology and that human touch and the problems of transportation together, right? And that's where someone like Andrew, the sky is the limit. So it's like I agree with you. I put money on him doing something great next, but what is it? That's I think that's still out there to be said as well. So, but he is incredible at pushing the buttons and being and just saying what really I think people really want to say. And it's funny because he doesn't really. I mean, I will say a little bit of that post, initially I was like, okay, as the Gen Zers now say, this is like my new favorite slang, uh, touch grass, like you did just get acquired for $235 million. So like, yeah, you could, or you could like not and still probably
I
be like really fine. But like the expertise that I know that he has and the knowledge and just the relationships around him. I almost hope that he doesn't do another brokerage. I'd really love to see where he can get creative and
Hmm.
and maybe do something that no one's thought of before. I mean, his
Hmm.
again, I hate to bring up his dad, but I have read his dad's MIT thesis paper. Like his dad revolutionized
Yeah,
the
give us a
procurement.
backstory on his dad.
So his dad uh is I'm trying American he was a part of American backhaulers, right? So he
Hmm.
helped develop kind of like the Chicago style brokerage, right? Like
Hmm.
how do you how do you take all of these available loads? This was like right after not right after, but right after deregulation. So now that you have all these available lanes that don't have to be handed out by the government, etc., like how do we optimize a truck finding a load, how we rate the load, etc. So he was like the mathematician behind
Hmm.
what you have to consider when doing this. I almost like want to pull up his paper if I have it still. His name's Jeff Silver, and there it is. I was to say I know it's in here. I've read it so many times. And so like just to kind of like showcase a little bit of what his LTL consolidation. Okay, so here's a perfect example of the overall problem with LTL freight. In this problem, there is also no assumption or uniform demand, shipment size, or products. So some products, such as carbon black or paper, cannot be shipped. The object is to minimize the total combined cost of shipments. And he goes into how you could do that and how to put this all really into like an algorithm at the end of the day. There's a lot of math within this thing. Literally, all you have to Google is MIT paper, Jeff Silver, and it'll pop up. And he even showcases like the average cost per mile from different states and literally comes up with, I can't even figure out how to read this math problem, like a way of literally like figuring out if the distance between locations and specific lanes, how to actually price it out. But he also dives into the problems that we have, like the inconsistencies, the fact that in a perfect world, which for anyone who might not know as well, American backhaulers ended up being Robinson, being taken in by C.H. Robinson at the end of the day. But it's just interesting because like, at the end of his paper, he kind of brings up the fact that the hardest part about all of this is that when you're creating like these connections, you're creating them in a technical environment where it's not static, right? Like, so the problem is there's always going to be a new shipment, and there's always going to be a new lane, and there's always going to be a new company, which could change the environment of a certain freight market at any point in time. And like, how do you consider all of that? And that's, I think, a lot of what the technology that's out there today struggles with. It's like, yes, in this exact second, that's the correct formula for finding the best load on this lane. But all it takes is Target opening up a new warehouse in your neighborhood for the market conditions in your neighborhood to completely flip. Truck parking, right? Like, there's no truck parking within a 100-mile radius of your warehouse. Like, your conditions will change. So it's like, what he's really interests me about that paper is like these different areas that he brought up that make it difficult for there to be a perfect model. So yeah, that's what his dad is from. And he's got he's built Mastery, which is a huge program. When it really called TMS, we'll just throw out there TMS out there. But Google the family. His mom was a part of that too, so that's what I mean. It's
wow.
Matt Silver's his brother, which was Forager, which got bought by Arrive. It's a technology that helps with cross-border shipments. So I think, like I said, I'm excited to see where Andrew goes. And I think with the tools and relationships and his network, like, I don't know, I almost hope he doesn't go into another brokerage. I'd like to see him.
He's definitely a builder. You can tell that it's one of those situations where he is, especially with the sentiment from his LinkedIn posts, he is itching to do something. And I maybe he's working on, a couple different things at the moment. But I find that those types of people, like a Dave, like a Andrew, like my old boss, the money's nice, but they want to be in the trenches. They want to be right there on the ground level of something beautiful getting built, something that they're passionate about, that they can wake up in the morning and be super excited and can't wait to get to the office on time, unlike some of the Barstool, employees that are showing up late the next day. And I think that's sort of to put a nice little bow on, the way that I guess companies, media companies and freight companies are being built is with that strong leadership at the top. And if you don't have that strong leadership and a strong sort of visionary, I think it's really challenging to make it to that next level where you could sell your company for millions of dollars if you don't have that kind of a CEO. So I think all of these CEOs, this is the next level or the next step for them. And Dave has, gotten the opportunity to get that second chance. I don't know that happens for any other company besides Barstool. Very unique set of circumstances. But for, Andrew, for some of these other, CEOs that maybe you've sold your company off and, it didn't turn out the way you thought. There's nothing quite more fun than building a new project, the challenge of it. And so I think that Andrew will definitely find his way. And I hope that he keeps being like raw and honest with everybody about that process and the struggles, because it is a lot of struggle, and you see a lot of fluff on LinkedIn, and you see a lot of the highlight reels. I think LinkedIn and Instagram are famous for showing the highlight reels, whereas, maybe like a Discord and maybe like a Twitter or X, they're showing like the more like rawness of it, the snarky of it, the I guess the edginess of it. And so I think that's it's going to be really interesting to watch both of those things unfold. Okay,
Yeah.
well, I guess, this is kind of related going into our next topic, interesting hustles in freight. So, the idea behind this is to replace the conspiracy theory segment, because that might get us in a little trouble eventually. It hasn't gotten us in trouble yet, but let's try to avoid, I guess, trying to be edgy without being a tinfoil hattie. That's the goal of this new segment. Is interesting hustles in freight. So the idea behind it is to pick a legitimate business and then pick a crime. So we're going to, with cargo crime, I'm truly
I love this.
fascinated with it. There's a show called To Catch a Smuggler that's on Nat Geo. I do not miss an episode. If the marathon is on TV, I watch it all day. But with the business side of it, I think there's some really interesting businesses going on. And you were speaking to this earlier, especially that's going on in like the Discord of like younger people like building up different things. So tell us what, maybe I should start with Reed's first, because we hinted at him earlier and what he's building with his Please Advise hats. And what I think is really cool about this is that I think he's such a good community builder, and he's gotten so good at it so quickly that I don't even know if he knows how good he is at it. But this is my favorite thing. So everybody that has bought a Please Advise hat, he has this image that he shares every now and then, like I think at least once a month, of everybody in the United States or even North America, it looks like, that has bought a Please Advise hat. So you can see in real time, or not real time, but you can see almost real time of everybody everywhere all over the United States that has purchased a hat. It looks like, if you're just listening to this, it looks like it's, I don't know, maybe about 70 hats. Looks like I'm gonna have to, my little hat there in Jacksonville. Looks like I think I'm the only one, but I'm gonna fight the other, 7 people that are in Florida in order to keep the Florida title in my name. Actually, there's 8 people. Yeah, the 8 total people in Florida, which hopefully we'll get those numbers up. But are you? I'm assuming you're represented in this because you mentioned that you have the hat as well. So I think that is one
Yes.
really, really interesting, sort of business model. And it's one of those models where it has no effect on the actual business that he runs. It
Yeah.
just, well, I would say it definitely has an effect, but it's not like he's out there creating specific content. Like I don't even think his logo is on these Please Advise hats. It's just a
No.
movement.
Yeah. By the way, I like just texted him. I was like, this whole episode is just turning into a chat about you. So leave it
I
to
got to get him
2
on the
women to
show.
just leave it to 2 women to just talk about a man the whole time. No,
Ooh, no.
it's I did text him this the other day. What is interesting about this though is the tool that he is created, or his his business that he's working on, is basically a way for carriers to uh, send out their available truck list to customers and or to brokers, etc., shippers, whomever, and so that people know about your available assets, right? And I was telling him, like, what I think this can help with is that you're building a very big group, especially of truck drivers who trust you.
Hmm.
And in an area where drivers in particular are like, great, another app, like, what are you doing with my data? Like, how great is it to have attached to you a brand that says, like, you can trust me and I know your problems, and like, not to anything against them, but like, when's the last time Macro Point had a 100 driver chat about how this industry could improve, right? Like an authentic chat, not like a panel with like the head of the ATA, OIDA, and like literally like people you've never heard of who are driving trucks,
Yeah, real quick, with part of that group, the
Yeah.
Discord group, which one of my favorites is Gord. He's a truck driver. He
Yeah.
used to be on Twitter. I don't think he's on Twitter anymore, but he has a great podcast. He was on an episode of Odd Lots, and every time or not every time, but he said he was mentioning the ATA, and he says immediately following, didn't miss a beat. He's like, may they burn in hell. So anytime I hear
I hate
someone
them.
say the ATA, I hear Gord's voice in my head saying, may they burn in hell.
Yeah, lumbar tube. Oh boy, could they? We had a freight therapy session. Because like I said, I at one point I was deep into like politics, and I was like, you guys, you could technically we could take over the ATA. I mean, all you have to do is become the president of your state, and then we would eventually. I told him if we could get 28 states, like,
Who's
and they
going to
were
be the
like,
wartime CEO for that? It's got
and
to
then
be Lombard, I think.
we go in, we flip it, we vote a new president, and it's just, and they were like, that can't be possible. It's like, that's how it's run. It's the ATA is the American Trucking Association. So we just have to lead each state's association, and then we
Vote ourselves in.
yeah,
A
throw a
hostile takeover.
yes.
Succession
It's
style,
like,
but the
don't listen to
people but the people are doing it. Lombard has got to be the leader for that. I think he gets everybody fired up as far as like
yeah.
his motivational videos, and these are all, if you hear us talking about these people, this is why you need to get on X. This is Twitter. You need to get on Discord. This is why you need to be on these channels, because these are the up and coming like personalities that are not afraid to speak exactly what's on their mind and to call out the bullshit that exists in the industry. And it's very refreshing, I think. It feeds my internal anger when I see like in, these big institutions that have all failed us in over the last few years, and what's going to rise from those ashes after, hopefully they get burned down. Probably going to burn down a little bit slowly, but what's going to rise from that? And I think it really starts with folks like the people that we've been mentioning, pointing that out and pointing out the hypocrisy that goes on.
Yeah.
And he's doing it, and going back to Reed, he's doing it in a way that he is building community and then also building trust, to your point, with his business.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that is, you can look at it as a way of marketing in a way, right?
Mhm.
Like, but it's also, I mean, we all know from our own businesses, and this is any industry, a lot of building a business is who you know and the network you're pulling knowledge from. So let's say that it let's say that even he had a different business in front of him, like there's a lot of people he's talking to. I mean, even myself, I was just saying, like, from that group, I've learned about different technologies that I had never heard of
Mm.
and that are doing really incredible things. So uh it's helped me reach out to new people and learn more. So I think it's a really strong network group. I think that there's really none like it. I mean, like, I wouldn't count Freightways as like a network group, it's like we're really the news, if anything.
Mhm.
But it's a group that's open to anyone. You could be a warehouse worker and be a part of it. It's not like a trucking association or a brokerage association. We have joked
We gotta
before of making a TIIA, the Transportation Intermediaries Association. Where like, that's funny. You know what I mean? Like,
That's
that's
almost that's almost the name of the stadium, or it used to be the name of the stadium here in Jacksonville, TIAA Bank Field.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
before it's just missing that extra I.
Exactly.
All
But
right.
that's it. It's all about having fun, but networking at the end of the day, I think, for him.
Did you have another business, or was that kind of like your choice for like a business hustle that you admire going on in freight right now?
Who? I mean, that is definitely one that I admire and like kind of have opened my hand to, like, how I can help with this.
Hmm.
Uh, Other ones out there that I can think of off the top of my head. I mean, I think what you're doing is awesome, right? I've said that a thousand times. I think, of course, how you're growing your own thing and contributing to the space. You, even Chris Jolly, right, is working on stuff. I think that's really
Freight
incredible.
Caviar, Paul, with what he's
Yes.
doing. The
Yeah.
newsletter that he writes is really clever. There's another one, Think Freight is another
Yes.
kind of a similar like newsletter media
Mhm.
platform. It's really cool watching these stories like being covered by more people. It lights a fire under my ass. I'm sure it lights a
Yeah.
fire under other creators' ass. Like we can't just stay complacent. We can't be like a macro point and not innovate and not get
Yeah.
better at what we're doing. And not to say that not to, I guess, a slash or against
Yeah.
macro point, but
Yeah. You know,
if you're
Dan
not
over
staying
at
relevant.
Descartes, we still love you. Yeah.
Yes. Great technology, but I think that they're sitting on like a gold mine of content that they could be
Yes.
creating. And so I think it's just maybe a challenge to the rest of the freight industry that you have really cool stories to tell within your company and you can find those different avenues to do it. You might not be able to, and you probably shouldn't try to tie a direct ROI to it, but just
Yes.
focus on creating that stuff that matters to you within the industry, because if it matters to you, chances are, it's going to matter to someone else as well. And that's where I think a lot of magic happens is from that collaboration over competition. And even though there's still a little competition in there, but competition is good for everybody. So okay, so those are the legitimate like business side of things that we admire. What about on the crime side of things? Did you have a one for this one?
Uh, so I guess for this one, do you mean like, is there a certain crime right now that's interested me, or do I have a good crime story? Because I've got both.
Either or, I think we're fleshing this this new segment out of what to pick, because I picked like a story from that I actually got in the Think Freight
That's
newsletter that came from CDL Life. So there was a $4.3 million worth of meth found in a semi shipment of vegetables. Going back to, I guess, my earlier point with To Catch a Smuggler, it shows all of these different crime syndicates and how they try to get drugs and merchandise, counterfeit merch, even like plants and seeds and animals and things like that, and how they try to get them over different borders to bring them into the country, and how the Customs and Border Patrol, they try to stop it. So they try to stop it through a variety of different ways. Most of the time, it's imaging, and the imaging can scan for organic materials. It can scan for irregularities, and as soon as they find that, then they will send a shipment off to somebody else to be checked out more thoroughly. That's what happened in this meth case, where I'll share an image of it for you, that it was basically stored in a bunch of different vegetables. The street value 4.3 million, which is just insane if you think about that.
wild.
All of the shows that I watch, like the To Catch a Smuggler, most of those, I try to like guess what the street value is, and I try to guess like, okay, how many kilos did they get caught with? Which, God, this video is definitely going to be demonetized on YouTube after all of these topics. Hopefully, LinkedIn even
Just
allows these kind of
say
terminology on their platform.
vegetables, vegetables, vegetables. We're talking about vegetables. Yeah.
Exactly. We're not the ones doing it. We're not advising you how to do it. But these idiots thought that they could get through the border with this. And it was 488 pounds of meth concealed in a shipment of vegetables, street value $4.3 million, which is just insane. And it was all on board a semi truck arriving from Mexico, which they found. They noticed some irregularities, and then put it over to the secondary screening, and that's when the secondary screening, ooh, they get them. They get them during that regard, or during that aspect of the shipment. And I think that's that was my favorite like sort of crime story of the week. And again, that came from Think Freight, also courtesy of CDL Life, which I just find, especially the image scanner machines. I don't know if you've ever seen them like in action, but they can, from a suitcase to a car, they can
Yeah.
tell the different materials. And if the inconsistencies throughout, like if you're trying to shove a bunch of kilos of cocaine in the bed of your truck, or in the engine of your truck, like they have all of the tools, even from as simple as like the fanciest merchandise or the fanciest scanning equipment, to just taking a stick and just tapping around the car to hear if it's hollow or not. Like they
Yes.
go from like all of those different types of ways to find these different shipments. And like I said, it's not just drugs, it's also like counterfeit merchandise, which is a big deal. Seeds, of course, plants, which can contain sometimes live insects. So if you're trying to bring like a particular kind of plant through customs,
Yep.
then they will take that plant over. And if they find like one bug on it, they'll send the entire freight shipment back. If the bug is dead, then they tend to keep the shipment. But if the bug is alive, or if it's like there's chance like a moth, for example, can lay some larva in a
Yeah.
shipment of vegetables. And if the moth is alive and during the shipment, they know that the larva is somewhere in that shipment. So they'll turn the whole truck around because they don't want to mess up, the agricultural systems in different countries. New Zealand is infamous on to catch a smuggler. Like they will not let any kind of live like plants, anything like that, because they live on an island, and so they can't have that kind of disruption to their ecosystem. So I find the aspect of like cargo crime really, really exciting. I'm going to be covering more of that. I've done a couple interviews with Overhaul, which also stops like crime
Awesome.
syndicates.
Love them. Yeah.
I'll link to that in the show notes in case anybody wants to check those episodes out. But I'd love it. I don't know if anybody else loves it as much as I do. What are your thoughts on the cargo crime?
So it's interesting. This is kind of a cargo slash fraud load board situation all mixed in one. I don't think I've told this story. Have I talked about this tire situation on this show
Mm-mm,
before? So
don't think
back
so.
at my brokerage, there was a load of like, those giant tires that like go on like equipment and stuff that are like
Mm,
as tall as you are. It was an oversized load, and we were moving some of those tires from like Southern California up to Alaska. It was a really long lane, and uh we're shopping off of the load boards, which is just so funny. But we ended up finding a company could do it, and their MC number, everything looked great. Even if I remember right too, even like the email, everything checked out fine, insurance was good, etc. What saved us on this, and good job I remember like overly shaking the carrier rep's hand, making sure we tracked it. We're like, we need a phone number for the driver, and they're like, okay, well, he's maybe a sign that like something was up. He's like really busy. He can't really talk right now, but here's his phone number. I told him to watch for a tracking notification, and he'll like take care, etc. So yeah, so we started tracking the driver because it was like a Friday pickup too. So we just had to like
mm,
make sure he'd be there on time and all that. That's what we were more concerned about at the time. So he got there fine, picked up, loaded on the road, and it was a Friday. And I remember probably like an hour or two later, the rep had come to me and said, "Hey, this guy's like driving pretty south." Like it was very Southern California, but he was like basically riding the border through at that point like Arizona or something like that. And I'm like, well, maybe because I remember the phone number being like a Texas phone number. So I was like, well, maybe he's going home for the weekend,
mm,
and then gonna trek up to Alaska, even though it was like a long drive and it had a delivery deadline. So it was like, well, I guess if the guy knows what he's doing and can make the hours work, like screw it, let him go home. And then like a couple more hours go by, and the rep's like, hey, this dude is just like, we need to like check in this situation. So
mm,
the rep calls the carrier, and he's like, we're like, we saw that you're riding pretty south, like we just want to check in, are you going home for the weekend, etc. And he's like, no. And he's like, I'm headed towards Miami to make this delivery. And we're like, Miami? Like, what are you going to Miami for? Like, this thing is supposed to go the opposite. It's supposed to go to Alaska.
right,
Like it's like, no, not even close.
sir.
And and the guy was like, what are you talking about? And we're like, what are you talking about? And I remember like calling the guy, like the original dispatcher, and just like blowing up his phone, and no one was answering. And I was like, listen, can you just please like just pull over and not go anywhere? Give me like 15-20 minutes to check this out. Cause drivers, like, he's like, well, I only have so many hours to like
Hmm.
drive. So like, I'm not trying to sit somewhere. And at this point, he's like more confused by me than I am almost with him. And so, uh, we just keep calling, and no one's answering or picking up. And I text him like, can you send me the paperwork that you have, like the rate confirmation, everything that he got? And so he sends me it, and there's this address, and it says he's supposed to be going to Miami, and it's nothing that he got from our shipper. It's just like, he's like, yeah, apparently they told me it was a blind BOL. So they said the
Mm,
delivery address is going to tell you Alaska, but just who's paying for it. It's supposed to actually deliver in Miami. So then I Googled the Miami address and it's like a tire shop. So like what I think this company was doing was searching load boards for equipment for description types of tires, and has probably been stealing loads left and right to get inventory and then resell it either on the black market or to people who need it.
Wow.
And so it took us, I remember I was like, I need you to go back and get unloaded. Like, he's like, no, like it took forever for us to convince the driver. And I wasn't truly upset with him because it's like, how does he know I'm not being a fraud? Like,
Yeah, I was about to say, like, is he part of the fraud, or how does he
yeah.
know? Like,
And he wasn't. He was just, it was a double brokered situation where
mm,
they brokered it to him and said it was his driver, and because we were smart and didn't give a pickup number or anything until we got it. I think what happened is the double brokers, once we got our hands on a phone number, realized they were going to get caught and just like said fuck it, like we're just going to ignore all phone calls and keep it moving. Um and I think we ended up, I was like, listen, we will like, it was either like a cash app or a com check situation. I was like, I will send you a com check now to go back. And then once you're unloaded with those tires, I'll send you even more right then, like enough to like build up his confidence that we weren't lying. And then I think about a week later, I got a phone call because I ended up going on Care 411, letting people know what happened. And the actual owner of the MC called me and was like, I saw what you put on there. Someone stole my identity, is using it to like steal tires, etc. So
wow.
it's like a whole organized thing. That's why you track your trucks, everyone, but and check in on them. But yeah, I mean that could have been serious. I mean, those tires are expensive. If I remember right, there was more insurance on it than 100,000, and it's like insurance isn't going to cover negligence in most of those situations. So yeah, we saved ourselves that day. But I think that, I mean, that was that kind of stuff happens all the time, and
Mm.
we are at the time one of like thousands and thousands of brokerages out there. So there's other people I've gotten screwed, and I think it kind of shows you, right, like how it's not just about double brokering and making a margin, right? It's even buying your inventory off of,
Catfishing.
yeah, catfishing, building a black market, like, so crazy
It's
stuff.
all kinds of interesting stuff that goes on in the transportation of goods, and
Yeah.
especially from a historical perspective. So I think this is going to be a fun one for us to cover more often in the future. So I know we only have a few minutes. Do you have to leave right at 3?
Yeah, I could go a little bit over.
Okay, perfect. Because I want to talk about your story about
Yes. Yeah.
get into your story about the future or death of ultra fast
It,
shipping, and then we're going to end it with our favorite logistics story. So, okay, so give us the rundown on fast shipping. Is 2-day shipping going away? Is it evolving, or is it more or less like the same day shipping that's probably going away?
So I will say I called this a mile away about a year and a half ago. I said, here's my hot take. 15-minute delivery is dumb. No one should invest in it. It makes no sense to me. That's the ultra fast we're talking about. We're talking about the Go Puffs. We're talking about the people, even in a lightweight DoorDash, but I'll get into why DoorDash I don't think counts anymore. I'm
Hmm.
talking about I want something now. I order it and it gets to me in 30 minutes or less
Like an
situation.
Instacart?
Yeah, yes, like an Instacart too. And I'll get into why Instacart has gotten themselves kind of out of this type of trend.
Hmm.
The big ones in particular would be someone like GoPuff, Gorillas, Getter, Bolt, Flink. Those are a couple of those are more European than American.
Sounds
But
so VC. All of
yes,
them.
yes, yeah, exactly. And they got a lot of money when, of course, we're all stuck in our homes and we really cared about getting stuff to us as fast as possible. But they've seen a huge fall off. So in 2021, in this segment alone, there was $7.8 billion worth of investment across 46 deals. Today, 2023 year to date, there have only been 3 deals for less than 0.5 or $500 million. A number of these companies have their valuations have just imploded. Getter in particular went from 11.8 billion to 8.8, and that's after acquiring Gorilla. Flink is trying to find money but isn't able to.
Mm.
The problem is, and I kept like, this is my problem with ultra fast delivery. And this is how I'm gonna kind of showcase it. Someone like Domino's, right? Like Domino's like they've got that like whole saying that we'll get to you, I think, in 30 minutes or less.
Mhm.
Well, the way it works for Domino's is because you'll see this when you drive past Domino's. There's usually 4 cars sitting right in front, ready to go. And in order to actually make these type of ecosystems work, is you have to have assets deployable, drivers deployable, pretty much at the location of pickup the moment that this order is put in. And there's already been a fall off of drivers for Uber, etc. And to you just have to have a massive capacity network in order to make this work, and almost to the point where you have too much capacity, so now you're overpaying. And that's, I mean, what, Uber just came out last week that they finally made profit after what, like 10 years
Wow.
or something like that.
Holy
Yeah.
crap. It has taken them so long.
Exactly. And that's Uber. Like that's the one we all actually kind of use. So these companies have just been falling off completely. I'm not surprised at it at all whatsoever. If you want even more in-depth information, go see my recent episode of Point of Sale on ultra fast delivery so you can learn more about it. But between, of course, economic uncertainty, most people aren't willing to spend an extra 10% on a good just to get it to them in 50. If I want something in 15 minutes these days, I'll drive there. You know, like if I really, I mean, honestly, I've even considered, I haven't used DoorDash as much because I'm like, you
Hmm.
know what? With where gas
Expensive.
is, yeah, it's like, oh my God, Taco Bell on DoorDash, they added like $1.50 to every single item. Also, if I'm not well, I am a DoorDash member because of something I bought, but um, the fees are just insane. And then you
Hmm.
have to tip them. And so it's like
And you
the
have to tip
tip is
them
more than the,
before you get the service, which I
yeah,
cannot stand.
yes. So it's like at this point, it's like I'm just gonna get in my car and drive. I'll spend less on gas. So I think that's why you're seeing the failure. The reason why DoorDashes and Instacarts though have helped themselves is they've kind of moved more away from just the ultra fast delivery. So they are grocery delivering, right? That's a big part. So they're not only looking at the business model of restaurants, but the grocery retailers are a big part of it.
Hmm.
And so that's GoPuff is probably the one that's valued the highest, but GoPuff also has its own ghost kitchens. So it's
Hmm.
offering something that's not able to be bought anywhere else. Say pizza, I think, is like one of their biggest
Hmm.
ghost kitchen items, right? So
Interesting.
they've opened themselves to different markets and different avenues for revenue generation, and that's what's, I think, helped them survive and grow this far. The ones that are just like, we're going to get you something in 15 minutes, like people just don't care anymore. And I knew people wouldn't care, and they would say 15 minutes, like if it's a 15-minute delivery, that means you're less than 15 minutes away, which means I probably should just drive to you
Mhm.
unless something crazy is happening.
15
So,
minutes is crazy. I don't know, how do you build the infrastructure for that, which I imagine is, probably what a lot of these companies are experiencing, especially, you noted earlier, which kinda I gravitated towards, is that a lot of these are Euro startups where
yes.
Europe is so much different. I was just talking to, Carrie, CEO of, Trucker Tools, and
Oh,
I
love
asked
her.
her, I was like, because she worked for Uber Eats, and she worked for them abroad too, and I said, "Well, what's the biggest difference between Uber Eats abroad and Uber Eats, within the US?" And she said with a lot of them, the overseas locations, it concentrated in very high urban dense settings where
Yeah.
everybody's on an e-bike making, deliveries. It's what I noticed in New York. Everybody it's a very much a system of, you very rarely see the big semis in New York City, like the
Yes.
city part of it. What happens is that they will park those trucks, they'll offload them to smaller trucks, even like box trucks, and then they'll take it even a step further where like the box trucks will go into the city and then have unloading sections of like parking lots where they unload it even more into bicycle powered carts, and then even the e-bikes. So it gets like small, it gets from the large shipment of a semi and broken down even further. And so I think to your point with, Uber Eats, or, for DoorDash or anything like that, these ultra fast delivery services, I think they're kind of going to evolve into just urban settings where it makes the most sense. I mean, having Uber Eats in like a small town in Georgia probably doesn't make a ton of sense unless you already have that infrastructure built out using Uber drivers, or using, just people who are not only working Uber, but they're working Lyft, they're working Instacart, like they're working several of these different gig economy type jobs.
Exactly. And that person has to be basically, as soon as that purchase is put in, has to be within probably a, a minute or two from the store to originate. And then you have
And they
to
have to still
already,
buy it.
yeah. And then you also have to have the inventory there. And it's just, I just don't think people care that much
Yeah.
to have something that fast. So it's imploding inside itself. And I'm happy about it because I called that. So there we go.
Well, it's a
It made
super
no sense.
interesting story. I thought that it was definitely, from my lens, I think that consumers care about the expectation of when the delivery is going to arrive, not
Exactly.
necessarily about the speed of it. I think there are still folks who will pay for convenience, but if you give them the option, like an Instacart, I use Instacart all the time. I've never once grocery shopped in my neighborhood in 3 years. I just
Love
order
that.
everything off of Instacart. But they give you, I pay the annual fee. So it's like 100, it's kind of like Prime, or it's like $100. You don't have to pay the extra fees for delivery and things like that. But they also give you an option if you want it super fast, if you want it within an hour, you're going to pay an upcharge. But here's a 3-hour window where you can choose that's in your plan, that's no extra cost. And that's typically what I choose. Or I'll schedule
Yeah.
it for the next day. It's more about the convenience of like not having to stop everything I'm doing, go to the grocery
Yeah.
store, pick out everything, probably pick out extra stuff that I don't need. And then, the hassle of like bringing it back to the house and unloading it. I would rather just make all of those decisions in the app and then choose a delivery window that makes sense for my schedule. It makes sense for, the cost, I guess, of Instacart doing business.
Exactly. Yeah, I could see that for sure.
Okay. We hit on that one now. It's part of the show for the logistics of. I wish we had some like noise or horns or something
Yeah.
like pow, 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 pow. Okay, do you want to go first? Or
Yeah,
you want
I
me to
will
go
go.
first?
I'll go first. Just because this is bring it full circle back to Barstool real quick. So I recently there's a guy that's actually kind of contracted through Barstool. His name is Wonton Don, and he's traveled the world. He Barstool originally found him when he was teaching English in China. And he had some really funny skits that he would do with the kids, and like teaching them about like athletes, but like for like English lessons, but like teaching them like who's bad and who's good and why. It was really funny stuff. You go check him out. But he's on this adventure right now, following if you've seen 14 Peaks, you probably know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Nims has this really cool business where he sets up tours and treks up to Mount Everest. And so there's probably 4 or 5 episodes, and this is Wonton Don on the screen right now. And he's not going to be going to the peak, but he's going to base camp 1, which is, oh my God, so beautiful. Go check out this episode. But throughout it, they're talking about, they every once in a while get to touch on the logistics of how stuff gets up to these areas. And I tell people all the time, like, one of my favorite parts of supply chain right now is companies like Flipkart, who are growing in like India, like helping these type of communities get things fast because they actually need that, not just because they're like Americans who want things now, but like actually delivering and creating digital marketplaces for like getting these areas, like desolate areas, groceries and stuff like that.
Hmm.
So are you going to show both clips, you think, at
Yeah, I
first?
can hit play. Hopefully you can hear the volume in it. But I'm gonna play what the first 10 seconds you said is good for this one, and then I'll play
Yes.
another clip right after that. So let's play the first
Perfect.
one.
So I know a lot of people have probably been wondering, how does the highest Irish pub in the world get all of their Guinness? Well, the answer is Guinness donkeys. You see this?
So the first that first 10 seconds, he hooked me already.
Yes.
So I'm going to be watching the rest of this conversation after the show. But you said go to, I think, the 14:45 moment. So I
Yes.
will.
And so they're going to get into Sherpas, who are individuals that deliver everything all the way up to base camp 1. Like, it's insane. And I'm talking tents, chairs, infrastructure. So this will kind of show you how we move things in these areas.
You want to carry one of those down, Jacob?
Yeah, man, I would do it. Can I try?
Yeah. All right, let's go.
There we go. This is good. You want to come with? Training for Everest, baby. Here we go. Nims, don't be mad.
No, this is solid training. I think Nims would actually appreciate this.
You know the problem with this right here, this carrying method?
Yeah.
Is that it puts a lot of stress on your cervical spine. And so, like, all along here, it would be difficult.
Yeah. And that's like one of the easier loads.
One of the easiest loads is an understatement. In the episode where he gets up to the base camp, there's a guy who's, I swear to God, carrying stacked on top of each other, probably 20 folding chairs.
Wow.
And so to kind of give people a overview of what exactly how they're moving a lot of stuff. So there's 4 main ways that you move things and goods to these areas. There's helicopters, which are extremely expensive, very expensive, and hard to land, right? So it's like there's only so much. Oh, perfect. You're bringing that up. Shout out to C.H. Robinson, who had apparently a worker who climbed Mount Everest and was able to help with this. Yeah, that's a blog. It's all about that. So,
so this is the graphic for. Hold on, sorry, real quick for folks who are just listening. This is a graphic from C.H. Robinson. If you want to follow along this graphic, check out the show notes. We'll link to it.
So if you scroll down a little bit, yes, you'll see in the lower logistics area, you have helicopters, yaks, which were the Guinness yaks, right? Which is like funny because that day Guinness, he was been waiting 2 episodes for the Guinness to arrive. So that's why he's all pumped about those yaks. Then you have some of the climbers, right? Will bring some of the stuff themselves, and the porters, which are basically the Sherpas. And if you scroll down a little bit to the upper mountain transportation section. So Sherpas are again they're just people. They're people of the area who help move everything that you can think of from the lower base of the mountain all the way up to the top. I mean, these guys, we're talking insane altitudes. Like where if I was to go even to the point in the last video that Wonton Don was at, I would be like gasping for air, likely. And
altitude sickness is no joke.
Yeah, they're already super high up. They're probably, I want to say, maybe.
It's got to be thousands and thousands of feet, because I know with that 14 Peaks documentary, they were covering all of the highest peaks. And I went to Machu Picchu before, and that was about 13,000 I guess feet above sea level, and I was dying as far as like altitude sickness is concerned. And some of these mountains are double that. So it's very, very significant with the kind of altitude that they're dealing with. It will get you, if you're not used to it, it will gas you out. Just simply walking down the street will gas you out. So they're climbing up and down mountains with supplies, heavy supplies, in that kind of I guess environment, which the Sherpas, I imagine, are used to that. But for maybe like the Barstool guy, maybe he's not so much used to that.
Well, that's what I would highly recommend watching this one. First off, it's hilarious. He's very good at making serious but funny documentaries. This is one of them. But it's incredible because throughout all of the episodes, I mean, even like I said, up to base camp 1, the Sherpas are up there moving everything that you can think of. They treat them like in a way like gods. Like
Hmm.
there's no disrespecting them. You better tip them, or else you probably don't have water infrastructure here. So it's incredible. And I'm just sitting there watching it, and it's like, what, we're working on digital freight markets and we're still moving stuff up mountains by Sherpas. Like, boy, is there so much to cover in this industry. Again,
Yes.
content.
That's a great story. And I love that C.H. Robinson took that extra mile to turn that into an infographic. Like I said, or I just mentioned earlier, there's so much content that you can create within your own company that, shout out to them for recognizing that with their own employee and able to take that story to the next level and share it with all of us. Because, for folks who are in logistics content creation, we're always looking for, unique stories. And, as we complain about, our lack of, 15-minute shipments, I think those Sherpas would probably laugh their ass off at the expectation of getting
Oh,
something within 15 minutes.
they're just like casually carrying 20 chairs on their back, like, and just raging past like all the climbers too. It's just hilarious to me. One of them had like
Absolutely.
Crocs on. I'm like,
Oh,
what?
wow. Which, I
Oh,
mean, damn, those shoes are comfy, but I would just, I'm not gonna trust them enough yet to like go to I don't even trust them to go to like a Disney park yet. So
no.
it's, definitely wouldn't trust them to go hiking. But mountain people are so different from us, what they call us, flatlanders.
Awesome.
Which
They weren't even in sports mode. Like, that's what the crazy. I was like, this guy is just casually climbing up these hills. I
just
love
he's
it.
showing off at that point.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a great one. Thank you for bringing that one up. I'm going to get into mine for a hot second, and I want to talk about the logistics of garbage cleanup in oceans and rivers, because I think this is, I obviously sustainability, pollution, things like that. These are all things that as a consumer, it's really tough to grasp as far as like what you can do to help and how you can solve these big complex problems. But there is one person that is trying to solve this problem, and it's 19-year-old Boyan. His name is Boyan. He has started up a ocean cleanup fund where I'm going to show this on the screen, but just in case you're not watching it, essentially what it is that there's the Pacific garbage patch, which is like hundreds of
Yes.
square miles in the Pacific Ocean with all of this plastic waste, everything that comes, out of rivers and everything we dump out of boats and things like all of this pollution is gathered up into one space. And so what's happening is that with the Ocean Cleanup Initiative, they're taking 2 giant ships, cargo ships. They're attaching a specialized net to each one of the ships and forming a U shape around this garbage patch and starting to tackle it sort of one by one. And they're making a tremendous amount of progress with it. They've partnered. I mean, like I said, this guy is 19 years old. He recently has announced a partnership with Maersk. So Maersk is helping to donate a lot of the equipment that is being used ship-wise in order to make this reality happen. And so just really quick, a quick video that I want to show with all of the trash that they just
Oh my god. We're disgusting.
And as you can see, like it in the video, it looks like so much trash. It's barely putting a dent into
Yeah.
this Pacific. I mean, to put it in perspective, we've only collected about 1 of 1,000. I don't know how you say that. The fraction 1/1,000. We've only extracted just a very like 0.5% of it, of the total size of the patch. A lot of these videos that they share are 100,000 kilograms, whatever that is in American. I can't make that kind of, distinction between the kilograms and, the American metric system, but do with that information what you will. What's really cool is the next step of this process, because the Boyan, who is the founder of this company, he just recently shared their new river system. So we talked about the ocean part of it, where they have these 2 giant ships. But with rivers, only 1% of rivers are responsible for 80% of plastic entering our ocean. So his concept is, well, what we can do instead is we can target the rivers in addition to this ocean, this
Mm.
big giant like ocean patch. And so if we can stop it from ever reaching the oceans, then that's going to be a situation that's better for everyone involved. And take a look at these like
Oh
disgusting
no.
rivers that are being cleaned up. And like I said, what was the point? 1% of rivers are responsible for 80% of plastic in our ocean. So let's take a look at this video.
Oh my god. Ew. They're just like straight up
Is it
taking
insane?
diggers to it.
I mean, if you're just listening to it, there's a couple different diggers. There's a giant river, but you literally like it's probably maybe like a square mile, just nothing of but trash.
Yeah.
It's honestly breathtaking how much trash is here. But knowing that these new river systems that he has developed will then take that trash and they'll sort it out. And so the next step, if you're still watching, the next step of the process is all of the people who are sorting through all of these different materials, finding what's salvageable, finding what's recyclable. And then the next step after that process is to turn some of these, because plastic is largely regarded as something that can't be reused, but there are companies that are coming out with different methods now of being able to take those the plastic leftovers, a lot of like our plastic containers, a single use plastics, you can't recycle those. And a lot of people don't know that those, even though you put it in the recycle bin, it has the recycle symbol on it, the overwhelming majority of our plastic cannot be recycled.
Yes.
But there are new methods that are being developed where they can take those single-use plastics and then turn them into bricks and then use those bricks to build housing. So there's a lot of really cool stuff that, with like, we kind of talked earlier about the younger generation and freight coming up with these new examples of how to tackle some of these really big problems. And I think that this is just such a brilliant example of a young person seeing a problem and attacking it at a tactical level, so much so that he has now partnered up with Maersk, one of the largest, probably the largest, logistics company, shipping company in the world, and able to tackle some of these problems with smart ways. I was really impressed with like the ocean cleanup part of it and tackling that, but the river just makes so much more sense because if you can tackle it at the source, then you can stop the flow of that garbage that eventually makes it to that Pacific garbage patch. So that's my logistics of story.
That's incredible. I mean, that makes sense because you could continue to try to take what 1/1000th away, but I'm sure as soon as you clean up that 1/1000th, you've got one whole other. You basically have two steps forward, one steps back, right? So
right. And there's one more quick video that I thought was super, super cute that I'm just going to throw in here at the last minute while I have you. But this is called The Logistics of Cattle and how you get cattle to an Irish island. This is on TikTok, so you probably haven't seen this yet, Grace. But let me see if I can show this full video.
This is the traditional Irish method of transporting island.
Moo-moos! Oh my god, look at the moo-moos all swimming. Oh.
They're swimming to where they'll graze for the summer.
A mountain so high it can keep.
Cows are naturally strong swimmers. Now that they have made it on land, it's time to dry off and start eating.
My hand, I know.
How cute is that?
So cute. Who doesn't love a good moo-moo? Oh.
Yeah, that's one of those things. How did they figure out that cows are strong swimmers? I do wonder.
Probably what they just did there, just threw it in the water and saw what happened. I'm like, dang, you're just gonna push her in there? Guess so.
But I thought that was really, really cute. I did not. I don't even know why I didn't think that Ireland had like farm animals like this. But I guess obviously it makes sense.
How those cows get there?
Right, and then shipping them over to the island. I just think that's really cute. So I thought that I would throw that one in there to end the show on a really fun note. Grace, I know you have to go, and thank you for staying a little bit longer with us in order to share these fun logistics of stories. Where can folks, follow more of your work, get in touch with you, join all of the different communities, all that good stuff?
Yeah, I would say, I feel like I say this every time. Google me. It's so awful. Rachel said that yesterday on the radio show, and I said, you know what? Go, girl power. Google me. No, for real though, if you, I'm on LinkedIn, Grace Sharkey, Sharkey. A lot of times people forget the E. You should find me. I'll pop up really quick because I put some emojis in my name. Differentiate yourself. So you can find me there, and anywhere you find me, my profiles, whether it's on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, you'll find my link tree. That'll get you to everything we're doing. I'll have a kind of, there's 2 exciting things I'm going to be talking about in the next couple weeks. So likely one we'll talk about the next time. Well, yeah, 2 we'll probably talk about the next time I'm on the show. One's freight race related, one's more independent. So yeah, it's going to be a fun episode next month. That's for sure.
Heck yeah. And we'll both actually be seeing each other at the upcoming CSCMP conference
Yes.
in October. Might mix in a little Epcot drink around the world trip. So stay tuned. Follow us on social for that. That'll probably be really fun. And
Yes.
then after that, of course, Freight Waves F3.
Yes. So far this year, for the rest of the year, there's a couple I might add. You can find me at the CSCMP. There we go. Conference in Orlando. You can find me at, of course, F3. And then Manifest Right is in the books for next year too. So there should be a couple, might be 1 or 2 more in between there. Tech Nation is the other one I might, or Technovations,
Oh,
San
TIA.
Diego. Yeah, that one I might be going to. So I'll let you guys know when I confirm that. But yep, excited
One
to get back on
conference
the road.
I do wish that we were going to his Freight Fest. Friend of the show, Ramil Watley of Truck and Hustle, hosting his second, I believe, Freight Fest. Bummed to miss it, but it's at the same time as CSCMP. I already agreed to go to that one first. So that's one that, or Freight Fest is going to be one on my list to attend next year. So great call outs for those. To check out more of this show, be sure to follow and subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast app of choice. But this has been another edition of Freight Friends with Grace Sharkey, and we hope that you guys will tune in for the next series. Also uploading our backlog of content videos from the same series up to YouTube in case anybody wants to check them out. But thank you guys all for tuning in, and we'll see you real soon, in the words of Disney.